Hello and welcome. There was an awful ton of discussion for an unbeaten team in the last week regarding the Coleman medalist pairing of Charlie Curnow and Harry McKay. More specifically, can these guys coexist? We know the answer to the question, but through a community poll, my task for this week was to answer that question and see how these two work together in the forward line. Harry McKay and Charlie Curnow combined for 10 goals 3, 32 touches, 31 kicks, and 23 marks in this game. Colossal numbers. Against key backs Aidan Bonner standing 190 centimetres and Aidan Corr standing 195 centimetres. To set the stage, here's some stats. Let's remember these. Carlton this year are first in contested marks, in the bottom half for marks on the lead, 12th for marks inside the forward 50, and 9th for marks inside the forward 50 per inside 50. Let's compare it to Geelong's 2022 stats with their superstar pairing. Geelong were 9th in contested marks, 1st for marks on the lead, 1st for marks inside the 50, and 1st for marks inside the forward 50 per inside 50. At first glance, this tells me we make it difficult for ourselves. Charlie and Harry take a ton of contested marks, but relying on them so greatly means a lot of those contests don't result in a high percentage of those being marks. Geelong, whilst possessing some other attacking acumen in their forward line, utilised their leading well and got rewarded for it and efficiently as well. We need to, in my opinion, follow Geelong's lead a little bit more, and it's going to need to start with a change in mindset. Given those stats I mentioned before, it's easy to say that this game involved a complete performance by the two of these guys. But watching this game, it's clear that Harry and Charlie's influence is mainly dependent on one key factor: ball movement. And it was clear as day, this was completely different either side of the halftime break. At halftime, the Fox Footy crew used a crazy metric. I'm not 100% sure of the specifics, but something along the lines of Carlton having 0% corridor usage. This was because North Melbourne's zone promoted a stop-start stagnant nature of ball movement that discouraged using the middle of the ground. Now, when this happens, it's very easy for Charlie and Harry's leading patterns to be of the same predictable nature. In the first 15 seconds, Cripper has won a free. It doesn't really seem like those two from their body language have anything premeditated, nor are they aggressive in their leading patterns or showing assertiveness in that regard. And I noticed a lot of times if one of them misjudged the flight of the ball and it goes over the back, or the kick's straight up bad, the other's present to crash the pack. Whilst it's a good thing he's making a contest, I'd like a little bit more separation. Another thing they do commonly is as they're moving away from where the ball is, like tracking back, they want the ball in a spot where they can lead up. It does make it difficult to defend when you've got that sudden change of direction, but that said, if you're pointing before you even start moving, as a defender, you can sort of anticipate the rough area where it's headed and prepare for that. I'd much rather these guys point as they're running towards the man with the ball. Even this example, for Harry, who is so imposing, he needs to start deeper and run towards the footy, instead of tracking back and congesting the marking contest even more so. Even this example, Motts obviously needs to gain some separation from the man on the mark. Once he's got ample room, Harry needed to cut in front and maximise this space here, whilst TDK probably peels around the back to the opposite pocket to keep things open. Instead, all three talls are within 10 metres and we spoiled each other. Lucky we had the numbers and scored, but this sort of stuff, it definitely needs ironing out. I think overall, just a lot of finger pointing. Not really too much method with leading patterns, not being fully assertive, half committing to a lead and then pulling out of it, jogging backwards and pointing into the space for a kick to make them move. When things get stagnant and the forward line gets congested, you need to try to alleviate the issue, not contribute to it, and it seems like we do the latter. I like the smartness of the TDK run on this one here. It sucks a bit of attention away from the hotspot, but Harry's got to make himself known and encourage the kick rather than wait for it. In the first half, Harry ended with 4 marks, all uncontested, and 1 mark inside the 50. Charlie ended with 3 marks, 1 of those contested and 1 inside the 50. That said, we got a teaser of things to come later in the game. Harry's lead up is strong and of intent, and then Charlie being the solo man going up, after also committing to a hard lead, allows the athleticism to be utilised. Far better than just trying to stand and deliver in the marking contest. In the few glimpses where Harry got up the ground, Charlie looked so much more free, and the ball movement promotes that. We'll see that in a bit. Now, second half, things changed, and changed drastically. Now, the structure changed. More numbers came up the ground in general play and for kick-ins, including one of the two key forwards. Now, bringing a key forward up to, say, centre wing was so impactful. You see, there's usually numbers condensed and packed in around the marking contest, so if you take a grab, odds are things open up further downfield. Because we had the intent of starting high up the ground and then running with the ball carrier, that influence that the North zone had in the first half was completely eradicated and allowed Carlton's key forwards to flourish with a lot less congestion. If we look at a couple of key stats here, prior to this game, Harry and Charlie had combined for 13 contested marks and 14 marks inside 50. Being able to do both means you can interchange playing one higher up the ground and maximize their contested marking to benefit the team's ball movement, and thus benefit whichever of those two is in the forward 50. We'll see a couple exhibits of this concept here. Amazingly enough, this season, we had not registered a score from kick-ins until the second half, where this concept was apparent. At one stage, I think it had a score 5 goals won from 6 consecutive kick-ins. You can see Lockie O'Brien get the play going quickly. Harry marks high up the ground, and if we pause, you can see where North had a wall set up. We've breached it with 2 kicks. Numbers flood forward. The development in Motts to break this tackle keeps the momentum going before ultimately Zeeble gets worried out of a free. The ball movement was quicker. North Melbourne's defensive efforts were more frantic. Mistakes like this continued throughout. You can see another example of Harry finding space on the outer side from a kick-in. The vision is the same of like every other kick-in in the last quarter, if we're talking about players streaming forward and an open forward line. I'd like to see more of Charlie coming at the kicker, as opposed to wanting it sat on his head, but the pace and ease in which we got it forward meant that Luke McDonald was scared shitless of Charlie getting off the leash, and so he commits what some would say as a professional free kick. Here's another example which is sort of similar, where Charlie has a forward's dream of so much leading space. We see the vision now. He could run more central and Pitto could run more pocket side. Charlie also could divert his run towards the boundary. Instead, he's really passive. Charlie gets a mark anyway, but this still image here should not result in a mark of this fashion. This time, Charlie comes up for the mark from the kick-in. We talked about how unstoppable Charlie is with his athleticism, and allowing him to leap with a kick like that allows for dynamic ball movement, which we're about to see. The kick to Harry is just as effective in utilising the arsenal these guys have got. And so, whilst there isn't a direct marking target further ahead, the speed of the transition via getting these contested marks means there's options available to end off the possession. The ball movement is grouse because it encourages those two to separate. If those two are close together, sitting in the forward line, we don't have a key forward to link up the chain higher up and allow a quicker, good to watch transition. That said, it also improved with more stagnant play as well. Seems like there may have been some halftime instructions. This early third quarter example, Harry's not even remotely in the vicinity, and even though there wasn't a mark, good things resulted. Harry ventured higher up the ground on this example and he did not break stride. Harry's probably got to be a little bit more stronger on the take, but who on earth is getting to Harry's outstretched arms when he actually commits? Especially with North Melbourne's backline consisting of hobbits, that is absolutely something we needed to exploit in the first half. We saw countless examples of Charlie and Harry kicking to each other, and this one's a good example. One of the two can lead up around about centre half forward and serve as that option for a kick in a part of the ground where we seem usually a little bit indecisive. A lead up by a key forward usually makes things more straightforward. I'm loving the fact that Charlie swings around here and the kick is excellent. Harry does assess the ball in the air quite well, and his run and jump isn't as clunky as it was in the first half. Therefore, he can meet the ball higher than the rest, and North are banking on Harry to fumble it. because they sure as hell can't impact it. You have Charlie in that contest, and there's numerous extra parties you have to worry about. In a case like that, it also makes things a little bit more difficult for the kicker because things are a little bit less straightforward with so many different players crowding around and congregating in that part of the ground you're going to kick it to. Another game changer in the second half were clearances. Clearances were won on the day by North Melbourne, but Carlton's key forwards reaped the rewards of the clearances we did win. And like on so many occasions, it led to a goal-scoring surge. Because of 666, the forward line structure doesn't deviate too much when the clearance happens, and the forwards have that space reminiscent of when counter-attacking situations happen. So marking was easier to achieve from this outlet. More space to kick into, more spaces to lead into. I like the innovation involved with this example. I don't know if this was drawn up, but I like it. TDK and Harry are in the forward line, and Charlie is actually pushed up to the stoppage. I would like to see if we can get a little bit more versatile in this area and spice things up like this. See, Charlie's athleticism and his build probably allows him to throw his weight around the contest, so I actually like this. Maybe in games where the going gets tough for Charlie and he needs to get some touches. And you can see how open the forward line is because the smalls have also pushed up as well, continuing the trend of us getting reinforcements to the contest in the second half. A place where we were getting absolutely smashed in the first half. If we're dominating clearance and are having one of these scoring surges, I like the potential of something like this. Maybe interchanging JSOS for Charlie as well, when JSOS is the third tall. When comparing game plans between halves and identifying the differences, it's not rocket science that the numbers show the same thing. The second half, where more beneficial game plan for these two key forwards surfaced, Harry ended with 10 marks, 5 of those inside the 50 and 4 of those contested, whilst Charlie ended with 6 marks, 3 contested and 1 inside the 50. Much like other analyses of mine that is critical of something, this isn't me bagging Harry and Charlie. This is me wanting more. Am I greedy given they still scored 10 goals? Yes. But in a game where you've got 2 Coleman medalists blessed with the gift of height and athleticism respectively, and the matchups are against Aiden Bonner, who's giving up so much height, and Aiden Core, who isn't a premier number 1 defender by any stretch, 16 combined, even though being a tough ask, is damn achievable. 12 marks inside the 50 with 52 inside 50s is a good ratio, but I sure as hell think we could have gotten more if we played a 4-quarter performance, especially with 2 formidable key forwards who are on 2 not so formidable key defenders. Anyway, what do you think? Should these two be smarter and more assertive with their leading? How big of an issue is Carlton's kicking into the 50? Can we see the full effect of Charlie and Harry even when we're moving the ball incredibly slowly? And find ways to utilize them more productively and creatively. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you for the next analysis after Gather Round. Have a good one. Bye for now.